Hello, my friends. It's Tuesday, September 17th, and here's your Ukraine war news, the daily brief for today. So there are 1,020 Russians off the battlefield, 2 tanks, 6 armored fighting vehicles, 6 artillery systems, 27 vehicles, and fuel tanks. Now, focus on this 635,880 number. I just saw this being published. UATV is reproducing what the Wall Street Journal just put out. The total number of Ukrainian and Russian soldiers killed or wounded since the start of Russia's full-scale aggression has reached 1 million. Wait a minute. Okay, let's look back at this. 635,880 on the Russian side. That means there's 400-ish on the Ukrainian side at a minimum. The publication notes that according to a confidential Ukrainian estimate made earlier this year, the number of Ukrainian soldiers killed is 80,000 with 400,000 wounded. So 400,000 and change and 635, yeah, that's over a million if those estimates are accurate. Okay, Andrew Perpetua's losses for today is about 2-1. There's blue is Ukrainian and the red is Russian, so maybe a little bit more than 2-1. Today in Ukraine, they celebrate Rescuers Day. They have a day for lots of things. Rescuers, the Marines, the this, the that, the other thing. But they really deserve this. These guys, man, this is some work. Ukraine celebrates Rescuers Day, a day of wonderful people who demonstrate their bravery and dedication every day. They save lives, often at great risk to themselves. Thank you for what they do. Yeah, that's something. 2 power substations caught fire in Sumy after a drone attack, and there is no light and communication in the city. The Ukrainian Service of Radio Liberty has reported there are no reports of casualties among the population. There is no electricity and communication in the city. There are interruptions in water supply, and movement of trolley buses has been stopped. Critical facilities such as hospitals and water supply systems have been connected to backup power supply systems. So that's hitting electrical substations, and that's again the plan. That's what Russia wants to do, put them in the dark. We're just starting to approach winter, and as we get closer to winter, it's going to be more perilous for the Ukrainians when this kind of thing happens. Ukrainian military intel strike, Russian drone base in Syria. Kyiv Post sources say the HUR Special Forces reportedly struck a Russian military base near Aleppo on 15 September, targeting a facility used for manufacturing and testing strike drones. So they put him out of the country for a reason, and yet they found him and destroyed it. Okay, Ukrainian forces, let's turn our attention to Kursk and what's going on there. Then we'll look a little bit at Pokrovsk and then come back to Kursk. Ukrainian forces advanced near Glushkovsky Rayon, Kursk Oblast, and Russian forces recaptured territory in the areas of September 16th. Russian and Ukrainian forces recently advanced in the Kursk salient. So the Ukrainians are picking up territory along the fringes here and a little bit down here, and the Russians are pushing into the salient, coming down, trying to recapture territory. Okay, Ukrainian forces regained territory near Kharkiv city and Pokrovsk. Okay, Kharkiv, as you know, is in the north. Pokrovsk is in Donetsk. Russian forces advanced near Crimea, Chasiv Yar, Pokrovsk, and Voldahar. So again, it seems like 6 of this and a half dozen of the other. So they're picking up a little here, the others are picking up a little there. It's not really moving one direction or the other in any meaningful way. Ukraine has taken steps to address its manpower shortages, but delays and insufficiencies in Western military aid to Ukraine continue to limit its ability to generate effective combat units that can defend critical areas and contest the theater-wide initiatives. Yeah, Zelensky was talking about this the other day. They've been promised enough equipment to outfit 14 units, I think it was, and they've only been able to outfit 4. And the reason that this is important is this: the generation of more Ukrainian infantry without a commensurate increase in mechanized equipment will not substantially increase Ukraine's combat power or increase their warfighting capabilities. So you can't just, here's a rifle, go forward. You have to have the combined arms fire to move forward, and that means tanks and armored vehicles and that sort of thing. Okay, Ukraine employs encirclement strategy in Kursk to potentially trap thousands of Russian troops. So maybe something will happen here. I don't know if it will, but the operation shows strategic advances with potential of encirclement of Russians, but faces challenges from the equipment shortages that we were just talking about. So that's a real problem. Ukrainians are capturing more Russian POWs. This was only a little more than a dozen. Ukraine's ground forces report that 13 Russian soldiers ran out of water and ammunition and surrendered after 5 days of fighting. 4 of them had serious injuries. But a dozen's not nothing, and that means a dozen Ukrainians that'll be coming home in a trade. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov explained that the increase in the size of the Russian army, now we talked about that yesterday, they've gone to 1,500,000 as opposed to 1,300,000, and that's the third time that the Russians have increased the size of their army since 2022. Why did they do this, though? Dmitry Peskov explained the increase in the size of the Russian army by citing the number of existing threats. He claimed that the situation on Russia's western border is hostile and the eastern borders are unstable. Any idea who caused it? Okay, I mean, there is that. Meanwhile, Russian true stories. This Russian lady is complaining that the Poles and the Georgians came in and they're real beasts into, I guess, Kursk. But they're not Poles or Georgians. They just don't. This lady just doesn't understand the language, and I've read about this before, where they didn't understand the Ukrainian language, and so they said it sounded like French or Polish, and so that's what's going on there. Russian propagandists tell their audience Ukraine should cease to exist. Show that to anyone who thinks that it's possible to settle things with Russia. Russia wants to destroy us. We want to survive. So here's the propaganda saying Ukraine, as it exists now, will most likely never exist, especially after the adventures in the Kursk region. Before the elections in America, Ukraine will commit such war crimes against its citizens, its soldiers, I'm not even talking about us, that it was a piece of cake earlier. All this together suggested a solution in the form of a political settlement is unlikely. Surrender is the only way to resolve this story, to go all the way to the end. Because even from a small piece of Ukrainian territory, which will be controlled by Zelensky's regime, hundreds of drones will be flying across our territory. Even if it's only Lviv, even if this situation will be problematic for us. Why? The Americans benefit. They do not want to heal this wound on the territory of Europe, Eurasia, to heal. So that's what they're actually saying in Russian propaganda. Okay, this gentleman was just sentenced by a Moscow court to 5.5-year prison term for giving a street interview to a non-Kremlin-backed media organization. How about that? Think about that. Just think about the enormity of that. Now, Dennis Davydov is getting extra play here in the Kyiv Post, one of YouTube's most popular war commentators. Dennis Davydov says that Ukraine's latest moves have taken Russia by surprise. So good on Dennis for getting extra publicity. And then here, Jake Broe, even better. Jake Broe demolished Piers Morgan and team's narrative that a pro-Ukraine supporter tried to assassinate President Trump. Be sure to leave pro-Ukraine commentary under this video. Okay, and here's the actual video where Jake's here with Piers Morgan and other hostile commentators. Good job, Jake. That's great. Carry the torch. Finally, Darth Putin, the parody account, says on this day in 1939, Poland, as a complete surprise to us, suddenly ceased to exist. So we entered to restore order and protect our compatriots abroad. We ended up committing crimes against humanity. Definitely not an invasion. Imagine that happening today. All right, my friends, that's all that we have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.